About to start on my third bow ever, and I wanted to make a video series on the process I use for doing that, how to pick out the right wood, how to shape it, and all those little details. Most of the information I'm going to be presenting I got from a series of books called the Traditional Bowyer's Bible. It's a 4-part series, and I picked them up on thrift books for about $50 for all 4 of them. I think it was like 55 total. Totally recommend that series and thrift books. But yeah, so just kind of jumping in. So like I said, this is my third bow. I recently got a shopsmith, so this will be the first one I make on the bandsaw, which should significantly speed up the process. But the first part, or the first piece of information that you need to know, is how to pick out a good board. Traditionally you would use a log, but I don't have access to that type of wood, and so you can get good boards for making bows from the hardware store. It just takes a little bit of an eye and a little bit of time looking for it. So usually I'll find about one every other time I stop by Lowe's or Home Depot that will actually work for the bow making process. And there's a couple specific things you need to look for, and the most important one is that the grain runs pretty much straight along the board. And so if you look here, you can follow this grain. It pretty much runs for the most part straight down the board. No knots, no weaves, nothing like that. Not a lot of curves. And so I've got 2 boards here that I'm choosing from, and both these are relatively straight. There's a little bit of a dip there, but probably not enough that it'll keep the bow from working. Then the next thing is the ends here, and I'm not sure how well you can see the grain on the ends. There you go. So if you notice, there's an angled grain on the end there. It runs that way. The ideal is straight across. Those are pretty hard to find. I actually haven't found one yet at the lumberyard that runs that way, but the angle is pretty good. What you just don't want is you don't want it straight across, because if it's vertical, that's a much weaker tension point for the wood. So ideally, the force would be going straight along these lines, or rather perpendicular to these lines, but at an angle it's still pretty good, and it still should be able to handle the bow. I'm building this bow for my girlfriend, so it's going to be about a 35-pound bow, so it doesn't need to handle the force of like a 60-pound bow or something like that. So this board should be pretty good. I'm choosing the shorter of the 2. One, because it doesn't have to be as long of a bow, but if you look down here, this board has a little bit of a curve to it, which I would either need to shape out or bend out. So that's some of the basics of picking out a board at a lumberyard for making a bow out of. Straight grains all the way down the board, and the end grains either at an angle or horizontal, no vertical. And that's my first video for this topic, and I'm going to post a picture of the books I was talking about if anyone is interested in learning more about it.